Skin depigmentation is becoming widespread in Cameroon, where almost all the country cities as well as countrysides participate in it.
In Abidjan Monday, former Ivorian President Laurent Gbagbo celebrated the first anniversary of the political group African People's Party, Côte d'Ivoire.
The impact of a strong US dollar is felt in Nairobi as Michael Gashi's spare part shop business is slow lately. Good afternoon, our dear viewers. Welcome to the 1 p.m. news coming to you live and direct from Golfe TV Africa here in the city of Cotonou. I'm Hazel OGOIGBE.
And I'm here Michael ADOGLO. Hazel, how are you?
I'm very fine, thank you. How are you too?
I'm good. Ecstatic. Can't wait to start.
Good to go. Starting from the local scene, an activity was organized for the focal point of the Departmental Directorate of Culture and Arts of Benin and the managers of artists. This session included training of cultural actors on the use of the digital ticketing platform. The event took place on Monday at the premises of the former Cine Vogue, and of course, Gauthier Sedude has the reports.
Benin is launching digital ticketing through the PASTIC platform. It is intended to be the ultimate solution to issues of traceability of revenues from cultural events in the country. Its ultimate goal is to allow Beninese cultural actors to live from their art.
Les avantages sont nombreux. Le premier, lorsqu'on organise un événement, il est difficile de recenser des points.
The advantages are numerous. First, when organizing an event, it is difficult to identify physical distribution points. It is necessary to be able to give a very easy access to the population. We must be able to inform them about the different events we have. So this is the first objective, to have a large database of people who are interested in cultural events, and then to be able to give them the facility to buy the tickets. So we have integrated into this platform mobile money tools, the wallets, to be able to make a purchase directly on the PASTIC platform. Another advantage is the traceability, because from end to end, we know who buys the ticket, who bought the tickets. All the risks of fraud are automatically eradicated, and there is also the security of the information, because it is only authorized persons who can have access to this platform.
À cette plateforme-là et pouvoir donc créer des événements.
This initiative is commendable and welcome because it will allow, among other things, to appreciate, for example, in terms of statistics, the number of entries, tickets sold, and the value of tickets. And this section, with the focal points of the 6 former headquarters of the departments of Benin, is an opportunity to exchange on the use and management of digital ticketing. Digital ticketing is becoming the solution to the expectation of the actors of the event industry in Benin. It allows organizers to have many advantages, such as the instant and continuous sale of tickets, and its secure system allows the population to pay with their local means of payment.
Since Monday, October 10th, students of the Abomey-Calavi University have begun submitting their files with the hope of being on the list of lucky beneficiaries for dormitories. However, the turnout this week compared to the same period last year. One of the reasons is of the introduction of the bank identity statement required in the documents to be provided this year. Good to say that they has more on the story.
Housing is the major concern of most students at the University of Abomey-Calavi. Their first option is the university residence, for which the filing of applications is underway since October 10. Many of them come to fill this formality to have the chance to be assigned a dormitory for this academic year. It is to avoid the long movements and not to be late for courses, to concentrate more on my studies. Because sometimes you finish courses at 7 p.m. and you have to go home while you are really far away. So I decided to stay in a dormitory so that I will not have to be coming and going every day. Last year, I did not submit the files, and during the academic year, I had a lot of problems to pay the rent. I rented a room with some friends, and it created a lot of problems. That is why I decided to file for a dormitory this year. This year, we noticed that there is a new document that appeared in the files. It is the document of the bank identity statement. This was not taken into account before, but it has been taken into account this year. For a place well known for long queues, such as the campus of Abomey-Calavi, the observation is that very few students are submitting the files. Among the reasons that could justify these is the bank identity statement. The deputy director of Cours AC gives the reasons that justify this reform. This document has been inserted because before the security deposits were given hand to hand, we have provided for the bank statement so that at the end of the year, we can transfer directly the security deposits into the students' accounts. The digitalization of the filing is another reform announced by the Cours AC, but the students' leaders want it to be done in the most efficient way possible to avoid other problems. The Cours AC said it has taken its responsibilities to allow students who will be housed this year to study in safety and peace of mind. An internal regulation and rental contract will be signed by each student, and zero tolerance is given to acts of indiscipline and incivism.
Away from that, a photograph of migrants found exposed without clothing along the border of Greece and Turkey last week shocked the world and is raising the international concerns that the migrants and refugees are becoming the latest victims of a growing dispute between Turkey and Greece. More information from our partners.
The discovery of nearly 100 migrants wearing no clothing along the border of Greece and Turkey is drawing international condemnation. Greece's Minister of Migration posted this photo on social media claiming to show the migrants. VOA cannot independently verify the content of the photo. Athens is blaming Ankara for the incident, a charge Turkey has angrily denied. Turkish authorities have been releasing videos of Greek coast guards purportedly pushing migrants and refugees back to Turkey. Athens too released its video on Twitter, accusing Turkish authorities of attacking migrants.
These people, because we're talking about people, about women, men and children, are trapped in a game, in a strategic game between Greece and Turkey, where Greece would accuse Turkey about what is happening and for not protecting its borders, for facilitating the work of smugglers, etc. And on the other hand, we will have Turkey accusing Greece for committing human rights violations.
Tension between Turkey and Greece is escalating over a myriad of territorial disputes centered on the Aegean and Mediterranean seas. In Athens, there is concern migration could be the latest front in bilateral tensions.
I think that no war, absolutely. But on the other hand, we could have some, how to say that, hybrid, asymmetric episodes, probably with the case of illegal migration.
2 years ago, a migrant crisis along the border erupted after Ankara declared its border with Greece open to its 4 million refugees. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, facing re-election by June 2023, is under pressure domestically amid growing public animosity towards migrants and refugees.
What I see now is the politicization of the issue by the opposition parties mainly, and the instrumentalization of the refugee issue by the government in their relation with Europe.
This is prompting Erdogan, experts say, to blame Europe and Greece for not sharing the refugee burden. But experts warn refugees will pay the highest price in this escalating diplomatic war.
The only people who are losing in this journey are actually those asylum seekers or the people who want to actually have a better future for themselves. But trying to attempt the borders nowadays is definitely riskier than it was.
Earlier this month, Turkey and Greece blamed each other for the deaths of migrants who drowned crossing to a Greek island from Turkey. The only thing both sides appear to agree on is that tragedy will not be the last.
Skin pigmentation is becoming widespread in Cameroon, where in almost all the country's cities, as well as in the countryside, many women and men have embarked on a quest for a clear complexion. Why, you ask? We'll find out more.
Skin depigmentation tends to be widespread in Cameroon, where in almost all the cities of the country, as well as the countryside, many women and men have embarked on the quest for a clear complexion. To the great displeasure of dermatologists who have initiated an awareness campaign to warn about this loss of identity and its dangerous health consequences. According to the Cameroonian Society of Dermatology, SOCODERM, Douala is the place where one meets the most practitioners of skin depigmentation, Jansong in local language. According to SOCODERM, in 2019, 27.8% of the population of the country's second largest city is affected, based on a sample of 10,000 men and women aged between 15 and 50. Next in order, the cities of Kumba in southwest, where 24.1% of the population lighten their skin, Yaoundé, the capital, 19.6% are followers of ginseng, Kribi in south, 11.1%, and Bagante in the west, 10.3% of candidates for skin depigmentation. We quote ourselves with everything disregarding the risks incurred in terms of health, such as skin cancers, says the associate professor of dermatology, before adding that it's not surprising to see a man or a woman with black feet or hands, while the face is almost mixed. If the fault is to be attributed to the noisy advertisement of the cosmetics industry, as well as to the followers of ginseng, people who have a complex about their black skin, the fact remains that according to Dr. Odile Ngoro, dermatologist, infectiologist, some pharmacists are not exempt from reproach. In fact, according to Dr. Odile Ngoro, some doctors acting in complicity with pharmacists prescribe to people prescription containing glutathione, a skin lightening product, sold at 250 francs CFA per box.
Barkers in Burkina Faso's latest coup, September 30, cited the military's failure to stem a deadly Islamic insurgency that is spreading across the Sahel and has displaced millions of people. More information in the following report from our partners.
War has raged between Western Sahel countries and Islamic State and Al-Qaeda militants for more than a decade. This social media video purports to show militants carrying out a massacre at a Burkina Faso military base last year. Analysts say failure to stop attacks helped spark 2 coups in Burkina Faso this year. Both military juntas that carried out the coups cited the inability of the previous government to improve security.
There was this expectation that a military leader would perform better than a civilian one. What we've seen instead is that since January, the security situation has continued to deteriorate.
All over the Western Sahel, governments are losing the war with militants. Data from the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project shows that more civilians died because of the conflict in the first half of 2022 than in the whole of 2021. In Burkina Faso, one of the previous military junta's flagship policies for reducing violence was to create military interest zones. It called for civilians within conflict-affected provinces to leave for a period so the army could carry out operations against any remaining terrorists. VOA travelled close to one of the military zones and met Jonas Sawadogo, who says he was forced to leave his home because of the policy.
It was the government's decision. It's not what we wanted. The military should have come and done something before it got to this point. Since we have left, we have no idea what they've done to protect our village.
nos dirigeants ont fait quelque chose pour protéger le village.
Gregor Sawadogo says he has received no support from the government since leaving his home, also in a military zone.
Since I left, I've been working as a labourer with stonemasons. I get about $4 a day to feed my family. My mother, my wife and my 4 children. I have to pay rent too.
Despite the terrible violence and more than 2.6 million displaced in the Western Sahel, aid workers worry this war will become a forgotten crisis. Sandra Latouf is the representative for UNICEF in Burkina Faso. She just returned from Djibo, a town in the country's north, where terrorists for months have blocked deliveries of food. Trucks carrying supplies can be seen here halted because it is too dangerous to travel on the road to the north. One convoy was recently attacked. She says children in Djibo are starving to death.
And it's really, it's a break heart to see that children have suffering, the population have suffering. We need to talk about Burkina Faso. We need to talk about the Sahel. This is a situation that needs attention of the world.
As the war in the Sahel intensifies, attacks by militants have begun to spread to coastal West African countries. The next phase in the jihadists' efforts to destabilize the region.
Residents in war space with towns bordering Benin and Niger fear a growing threat of violence from the Islamic State group and the West African group. Neighboring northeast Nigeria has been consumed by a 13-year jihadist insurgency that has killed more than 40,000 people and displaced around 2 million people. Leaders in Niger and Benin are determined to stop this Islamic jihadists from spreading.
Along the waters of Niger River, on the borders between Niger and Benin, fishermen have been able to go about their business without the fear of jihadi violence, which has plagued the rest of the country for many years. But in September, armed men attacked the border post in Malaville, in the northeast of the country. In Gaya, a town very close to the border, people are increasingly nervous. Mamensani Hahoun is the president of Gaya, and he said they live in fear because of the evil that happens in their neighborhood.
We live in fear because the evil.
A 3-week lockdown has been declared in 2 districts of Uganda as the country battles Ebola outbreak. The President Yoweri Museveni had already ordered police to arrest anyone suspected of having the virus who refused to isolate. And he has also forbidden traditional healers from trying to handle cases. In previous outbreaks, healers have been associated with hotspots for the spread of the virus. We have more for you on that.
Bars, nightclubs, places of worship and entertainment venues will be closed in Mubembe and neighboring Kasanda, and a curfew will come into force. The move is a U-turn for Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni, who previously said there was no need for such measures. This latest outbreak has killed 19 people among 58 recorded cases. However, the real number of deaths and cases may be higher. The outbreak began in early September in Mubembe, about 50 miles from the capital Kampala, and has remained the epicenter. President Museveni had previously ruled out lockdowns, saying Ebola was not an airborne virus, so did not require the same measures as COVID-19. But on Saturday, he halted all movement in and out of Mubembe and Kasanda districts for 21 days. Cargo trucks will be allowed to enter and leave the areas, but all other transport will be stopped. These are temporary measures to control the spread of Ebola, he said in a televised address. We should all cooperate with authorities so we bring this outbreak to an end in the shortest possible time. The president had already ordered police to arrest anyone suspected of having the virus who refused to isolate, and he has forbidden traditional healers from trying to handle cases. In previous outbreaks, healers have been associated with hotspots for spread of the virus. The first recorded death in this outbreak was a 24-year-old man in Mubembe. 6 members of his family also died. It later reached the capital Kampala with 1 death recorded in October, but health officials said the city remained virus-free as the man who died had traveled from Mubembe. This latest outbreak is of the Sudan strain of the virus, for which there is no approved vaccine. The Zaire strain, which killed 11,000 people in an outbreak across West Africa from 2013 to 2016, can be vaccinated against. Ebola spreads through direct contact with bodily fluids or contaminated material. Symptoms include vomiting, diarrhea, and in some cases, internal or external bleeding. The incubation period can last for 2 days or 3 weeks, and the virus can be associated with other illnesses such as malaria and typhoid.
The impact of a strong US dollar is felt in Nairobi in Michelle Garchi's spare part shop. Business is slow lately, and a strong dollar contributes to making other countries' imports more expensive, and more local currency is needed to convert into dollars.
At Shama's Auto Parts, a spare part shop in Nairobi, Kenya, business is slow these days. The impact of the strong US dollar is felt. This is compounded financial distress at a time when the Kenyan shilling is down 6% this year. According to the benchmark ICE US dollar index, the dollar is up 18% this year against a basket of key currencies. The cost of fuel and imported spare parts is soaring so much that some people are choosing to ditch their cars and take public transportation.
Sometimes you find that there is an increase of about 10 to 20% in the cost of a spare part within a period of maybe 6 to 12 months, which people are not expecting. For us, like now, we're in wholesale and retail of parts, and you find that most of the customers are complaining a lot.
Continuing to lose. If I used to take my children to holidays, they cannot enjoy those holidays anymore because of the weakening shilling. We don't have enough cash flows to play about in the house.
To combat the U.S. inflation running at its fastest rate in 40 years, the Federal Reserve has raised its benchmark short-term interest rates 5 times this year, with worldwide consequences. Kenya's central bank also raised its benchmark interest rate by the biggest margin in more than 7 years last September. The currency of East Africa's largest economy has been sliding to record lows against the US dollars. As of October 18th, one US dollar sold at 121.1 shillings, when on August 2nd, it sold for 119 shillings. Now to South Africa, where green future has become a cause for worry in the Mpumalanga belt. Coal is a bedrock of South Africa's economy, employing almost 100,000 people and accounting for 80% of electricity production. But the sector's future is uncertain as Africa's most industrialized economy looks to wean itself off the carbon emitting fuel in line with global efforts to tackle climate change. We have more for you on that.
Workers kitted in soiled yellow overalls breathing the hazy air as they wait to board trucks that will drive them to an underground shaft. They are readying themselves for a 12-hour shift, huddled under a carport shelter to avoid the scorching sun. There are more than 100 coal mines and a dozen coal-fired plants that dot the industrial landscape of the northeastern province of Mpumalanga, an area known as South Africa's coal belt. It's sad because there is a lot of mines and they hire a lot of people. If they were to close, a lot of people would struggle. So the mines are very important in our lives, especially coal, because we even make fires with them. They do a lot of work actually. Coal is a bedrock of South Africa's economy, employing almost 100,000 people and accounting for 80% of electricity production. But the future is uncertain.
I'm aware that the Seriti Green has been established a few months back, and then we are in support of that because we need to diversify as an organization in line with what might be coming in the near future and to benchmark ourselves with international standards.
So as to win itself off the carbon-emitting field in line with global efforts to tackle climate change, the government last year secured $8.5 billion in loans and grants to finance the transition to greener alternatives.
So I think we can run a dual system, coal and green energy, which will increase capacity. Because what we've seen is that we lack in capacity with the amount of load shedding we are having. Also, with the reserves that are still in the country, there's still a lot of reserves that need to be obviously mined out and then burned for electricity. So I think a dual approach will be more effective than cutting out coal totally.
Recent studies suggest more jobs will be created than lost by going green, but analysts say the swap will not be painless. The coal industry is concentrated in Mpumalanga, which accounts for about 80% of all coal production.
Well, now for more information and stories across the African continent, we head into the African newspaper review with my colleague Hazel OGOIGBE, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the 1 p.m. English News Edition. It's now time for our newspaper review. Hazel, how are you?
I'm very good.
Are you ready to get down into it?
I'm super excited, ready to go.
All right, let's go. I love that energy. We touch on the front page of the newspaper, starting off with the Matin Libre coming from the local territory. The front page of the Matin Libre reveals on page 9, page 3, Sénarthiou, après le décès de 4 patients. After the death of 4 patients in Sénarthiou, we have that on page 3 of Le Matin Libre, and talking about how the polemic never finishes. We have that on page 3. Now, looking below that, still on health, talks about falsified or fake drugs in circulation in the Republic of Benin. Now, talking about fake drugs in the Republic of Benin, growing up in Nigeria, we were very used to not seeing a lot of pharmacies. Growing up, honestly, even in Lagos, there were not a lot of pharmacies. You want to get drugs, pharmacies were usually always in hospitals. And that's when you're ill and the doctor prescribes drugs going to pharmacies. Apart from that, you just see some shops, pharmacy, but it's never really it's not very we can't identify to a lot of pharmacies in Nigeria. Now, how do you think such a problem can be? Look, in Nigeria, this particular problem of fake drugs have circulated for so long in the country. And now, do you still think that is a problem in the country? Or since NAFDAC, since the intervention of NAFDAC, this problem has...
Yes, since the intervention of NAFDAC, you find out that there's actually been very limited cases because NAFDAC has been on top of their game, trying to dissect companies because, drugs are imported from other countries and and then you have some drugs that are locally made, but when NAFDAC decides to zoom on a particular hotspot and targets them, you find out that the infiltration of fake drugs in the economy, or rather in the country, would be very reduced.
Now, where I'm coming to now is fake drugs in the circulation in Benin, Cotonou, yeah? Do you think it's as a result of the high cost of drugs in the country? Because in Nigeria, for example, we have a lot of small pharmacies, but these drugs, whether fake or not, we have a lot of drugs, and drugs are not very expensive in Nigeria. You see Nigerians coming from their country to Benin, and they see the same drug they bought in Nigeria, but the price is very high. You've gotten drugs in the country?
Yeah, I've gotten, and
what do you feel about the prices
quite
of drugs?
alarming. The prices of drugs in Benin is really, really exorbitant. And personally, I think because, Nigeria, it's a mixed economy. We trade with different people. We trade with the United States. We trade with the United Kingdom. We trade with China. So, all these companies bring drugs into the country, and then we also have people that we have EMSO that locally make drugs like Panadol and the likes. But in Benin, their singular point of trade is France, and this limits it. When a country has monopoly over another country, they are the ones that determine the price. So you need to open the market. Like when you buy drugs in the pharmacy, you just look at where it's coming from. France, well, in Nigeria, it could be Holland, it could be United Kingdom, and this tends to balance out, because if the United Kingdom, if this drug is made in the United Kingdom and then it's going for 10,000 CFA, then China will make it. It's still going to be effective.
It'll be
make for
stiff
5,000.
competition.
If 5,000, if China's misbehaving, then Thailand will make it. And then at the end of the day, you find out that you have different prices for different categories of people.
But none ever monopolize and set a high price.
Makes things unnecessarily expensive.
All right, moving on from the Matin Libre, we head to the next paper of the edition as we touch on La Presse du Jour. The front page of La Presse du Jour talks about the fusion absorption of the military hospital and Sénarthiou due to the problems that the hospital is facing. You do remember that last week the generators went off. There was a power outage and 4 lives were lost in that hospital. So now the government is looking for how to redynamize and how to restructure this hospital, and they feel that the absorption of the military hospital combined, the fusion of the military hospital and Sénarthiou would help save lives and help have better standards of health care in the Republic of Benin, in Cotonou especially. Now, moving on from that, we head to the next Republic edition as we touch on the Daily Guide. The front page of the Daily Guide, Ghana reveals produce ex-Maslocks boss, court orders Alex Mold. We had it on page 3. Supreme Court not being packed nominee. We had it on page 2. We don't supply Galamsey, he says. Jadson Acid has revealed. You can find that on page 6. Why make such a statement? Then there must be a little bit of controversy right there. You can find out more there. Nana Court sought for 4-tier sum interchange. We have it on page 6. But that's all we have for you on the Daily Guide Ghana. We head to the next Republic edition as we touch on our very own paper, The Nation Nigeria. The front page of The Nation Nigeria reveals how will I boost economy, enhance security by Tinubu. How will I boost economy and enhance security? Now, he goes on to say the APC candidate promises to sustain Buhari's legacy. The APC progress, he promises to sustain Buhari's legacy. In your opinion, what legacy do you think Buhari has left out?
That is a $1 million question, ADOGLO. What legacy does President Muhammadu Buhari have to boast of? When you listen to APC, you know, people that are pro-APC, when you listen to them speak, of course, I'm not negating the fact that, you know, when it comes to railway, they've done some infrastructures. They've done some infrastructures, but then...
As they should.
As they should. But then we have a pandemic in the security situation in Nigeria that has not been abated. Every single day you listen on the news, you find out that school children have been abducted, passengers have been abducted, and the educational system, okay, they just called off the strike. But then the remedy they promulgated for the strike, was it a permanent remedy or was it a temporary remedy? You did not meet their terms and conditions. You just compelled them using force to make them go back to work with a court injunction. And then, is that a solution to the educational panic in Nigeria? So the question is really, what are the legacies of President Muhammadu Buhari?
That is the $1 million question. The legacies in his set campaign promises.
Exactly.
And I feel for a lot of Nigerians, he hasn't met.
He promised electricity. So, you know, they have the power grid in Nigeria has collapsed 98 times, to say the least. Just from 2015 till now, it's hilarious.
And you know what's hilarious about this? I feel he's telling the truth.
Okay.
You know, when he says APC candidate, when he says I promise to sustain Buhari's legacy, he's telling the truth. It's going to be more of the same thing when he comes into power. More of the same. If Buhari was stuck at 2, he's going to maintain that 2.
It's really going to be a very catastrophic.
All right, moving to the top hand of the paper. It says Wike endorses Sanwo-Olu for second term, dumps PDP candidates, governors demand state police and others. Constitutional reviews stalled. We had it on page 25. We're talking about having state police and the importance of the police that understands the demography and not just having police that do not understand your people and go on to make mistakes in your society.
Before then, let's go to Wike endorses Sanwo-Olu.
Okay.
This is it's a drama unfolding in the People's Democratic Party.
PDP
because
supporting an APC.
Because at the end of the day, that's the thing. Wike is one of the chieftains, one of the stakeholders in the People's Democratic Party. He is the governor of Rivers State. You know, is said to be rebel in the party because things did not go the way they ought to go, according to him. Now, in Lagos State, we have PDP's candidate, gubernatorial candidates, which is Jando, and then, you know, Funke Akindele as his deputy. And then you have Sanwo-Olu, the present governor of Lagos State, coming for second term. And the funny thing about it is, as a PDP member, you've not decided to cross carpet to another party. You're still in the party, but then you decide to publicly endorse another candidate for another party. It's just an irony.
At this point, I feel a lot of PDP members should be very upset with Wike, and I think the best thing for
that you're still in the party,
just leave the party.
And causing catastrophe. It begs the question.
I think he's just on a sabotage mission. This is what he's on. This is also politics. Politics is a game. It's a game for men, not for boys.
Exactly.
All right, moving from that, it says Bank of America predicts Naira depreciation. We have that on page 7. Also, Army leads exercise to rout criminals in Lagos and Ogun State. We have that on page 25. Now, North leaders disown articles, don't vote Yoruba and Igbo's comment. Do you think that is? Do you think they are sincere? Do you think that's sincere? Or it's just is it an attempt to save
propaganda?
Attempt to save Atiku's face after he has gone on to make that blunder.
Sincere or not, the fact is they were wise enough to come to the public and say that we do not owe this. We do not own his statement. He said that as a personality. We are speaking as a conglomerate of people, like as a group, and we are saying that we totally do not agree with what he's saying. So at least that's quite honorable of them.
Yeah, okay. I agree with that as well. Moving on from that, we head now to the New Vision Uganda. The front page of the New Vision Uganda reveals, we can move on from that. The front page of the New reveals, Uganda just says right there, our government releases 134 billion shillings for roads. Roads are very important to the country. It helps save, a lot of expenses when you talk about automobiles as well, and also the movement of people, transits. Also, full list of beneficiary cities, districts inside page 6 and 7. So if you're interested in the social development of Uganda, you can find out more about that on page 6 and 7.
It's an irony that the government is releasing a whole lot of money when there's still a pandemic in Uganda and we're not hearing anything about it. Are they pumping money into the health sector? What are they doing to curb the ongoing Ebola pandemic in Uganda rather than pumping money into infrastructures at this point in time?
I guess at this point he probably believes he has it on lockdown.
On lockdown, okay. That's
also, Museveni Museveni to meet Francis Macron over the DRC Congo. What they will discuss there should be on the insecurity. I guess will be on the insecurities in that particular region. I really think
at this point African leaders should find solutions internally rather than always looking for ex-colonial masters to partner with or some stuff like that. Because at the end of the day, they are all about what they can gain.
Exactly.
The bargain, the relationship is never ever going to be equal. Because there's still this mindset of them be the bosses and you're supposed to be subservient to them.
White superiority complex.
Exactly.
During the war in Sierra Leone, the civil war in Sierra Leone, the civil war in Liberia, we had a whole lot of African countries that came up and especially in ECOWAS, that came up and made up ECOMOG.
Yeah.
And then ECOMOG
Nigeria was part of them.
Exactly. A major part of ECOMOG. And ECOMOG they had a very fine job in trying to install peace. The peacekeepers, it was a very good job done. They relieved Charles Taylor of duty. They assured his security. They moved him to leave in Nigeria, and in due time, he was moved on to The Hague for his criminal
charges.
Exactly. So they found a way to have peace in that country. And during that period of Charles Taylor kept calling on the United Nations to come in. He kept calling on the United States to come in. That if they did not come in, he's not going to relinquish power, because he believed that if he left that throne, if he left that seat of power,
the next person will be interest-based or a puppet from another country.
And he kept insisting on having peacekeepers in the country before he relinquishes power. And the West did nothing. It was ECOMOG that stepped in and had that job done. So when we're talking about the security of the DRC, this should be a lesson to them. And also listen to Tafa Balewa in one of the United Nations conference, when he was speaking to the United Nations, he said to them, let Africans solve African problems.
Simple.
Only Africans can solve Africa, because only Africans understand Africans. But when we Africans go to meet the West and have them come interfere with our politics, it messes it all up.
Perfect.
And this is why China is the way China is today, because China would never accept the West to come interfere with their politics, because they know the West are always gain-oriented. It's always about what they will gain. We could see the example in DRC and how they messed up the first prime minister of the DRC, the way the Belgians messed up. I'm forgetting his name now. Do you remember the guy with the glasses?
Just skips my head.
It skipped me. But you saw what they did to that. That is what they do when they come and when they meddle with politics. They always oriented to their gain, and you can understand that. So African leaders should not pretend they do not understand. This is what they're after.
Get to a point where at the end of the day they solve their problems
Africans
themselves.
Are capable of solving African problems. Leave us to do our own. That is it. All right, moving on from that, we head now to the Punch. The front page of the Punch reveals INEC summons parties. Police plans 113 billion firearms purchase. Page 2 and page 14. INEC chair to meet Adamu, AYU, party leaders over violent campaigns. Our governor candidate didn't mastermind attack on PDP rallies. Kaduna APC, Northern Coalition to publish article Tinubu and Obi's promises. Now, INEC has summoned parties and police, and they are planning to invest 13 billion naira in firearms purchase. 13 billion naira firearms purchase for the elections? I mean, that is a lot of money. This just seems, when they bring out these kinds of cash, you wonder, are they really buying this weapon? And what weapons are you getting?
The question is, an election is the act of voting and exercising your franchise. Now, the duty of the security arm of government is to protect the citizens. Now, INEC is bringing out 13 billion to buy arms, to equip the security to do what? To shoot Nigerians or what?
That's because this is 13 billion.
It's just an irony.
Are they expecting an exaggerated
violence and eruption of violence
that would cause at least 13 billion?
And then even if you eventually have an exaggerated eruption of violence, is the next thing to buy arms to kill your citizens in a democratic government?
But this is not small money, and this is 13 billion. Amazing stuff.
It's just amazing.
All right, now on the bottom half of it says, we look at the picture. We have this picture just right there. You're talking about flood victims battle hunger, risk disease in Anambra. We had it on page 26. You can see them all held up in a school, and everybody out of it because they've lost their houses, they lost their homes, they are completely displaced. And it's talking about how 5 million displaced people, how 5 million Nigerians have been displaced during the duration of the flood. And looking at the bottom half of the paper, it says federal government to complete Lagos-Ibadan expressway in December. We have them on page 77. I don't know who killed Ataga. I fled in fear. Now, this is Chidima. You will remember that Chidima is a 21-year-old Unilag accident that was having an extramarital affair. Well, she's not married, was having an affair with a married CEO of a TV station, Super Screen Television. One night, it appeared that he was dead. He was stabbed to death. He was bleeding. He was dead. And Chidima was accused to be the culprit. And she came out to say, yes, indeed, she did it. But then at some point in the story, she's gone on to track back on that story and say she did not kill him and that she found him like that.
Something fishy is going on.
So it begs the question: Why is she back down on this?
Why is she refusing her words
after you've gone on to say you did? So yeah, if you guys are interested, you can get more about that on page 29. I assure you, it is a very interesting story. Also, Ogun workers quit Chinese factory, protest colleagues that. You know, we keep having scenarios when blacks working for Chinese and always having
the Chinese
violations
are
about
just
abuse.
really abusive.
Are they this abusive to themselves? You have to.
I don't even understand. That is why the onus lies on every single African leader that is doing business with China, and definitely that China is going to be an employer of labor. They should create a very conducive working environment for them, and they should penalize them and send them out of the country when they try to treat your citizens in such an unlawful way. How can somebody, and this is just one out of the cases that's reported, a lot of workers die from the maltreating of the Chinese.
It's not an isolated case.
It's terrible.
If it's an isolated case, you know, okay, it's just one there, it's two there, it's three there. This is something that has been consistent, reoccurring
every single
time. So it tells you that there's a story there and it is true. Also, let's go real quick. Nigeria pays over 1 trillion naira tax to 36 states. We have that on page 27. Insurgency killed 100,000, displaced 2 million. The DFC, the Security Department of Nigeria, have revealed. We have it on page 16. We now head to the Punch Extra. We can move on from that. The front page of the Punch Extra reveals Newcastle Everton, it will be I's second goal against the Magpies. We have that on page 8. Retiring Higuain in tears after his final game. We have that on page 8 as well. Injured N'Golo Kante ruled out of the World Cup. You know, now is the time this is the first time we're going to be having a World Cup during the winter. It's the first World Cup of its kind. It's going to be held in Qatar. And it just comes smack down in the middle of the club season. So every one of these guys playing in their various clubs, those of them that get into the World Cup will have to leave their clubs and go play in the World Cup. So the club season is going to be paused during the winter so that the World Cup can hold. Now, players are all trying to make it into the World Cup teams. There are a lot of players that will not make it in, but then this is where it's fun. This is where it's a little bit complex. You get yourself injured, you miss out on the World Cup right now, and the World Cup is just in a couple of weeks. So yeah, N'Golo Kante, one of Chelsea's best defenders, best midfield players, alpha players, is going to be losing out on the World Cup. Also, Juventus star Paul Pogba also has a chance of missing out on the World Cup. Mbappe booed at the Ballon d'Or ceremony because he had said he wanted out of PSG because he's very unhappy with the formation and he's very unhappy with Neymar as well. But he has come out to say that's also a rumor. He never came out to say any of that. But still, during the ceremony, he was booed at the ceremony in Paris. Also, Devils aim for 4th straight win over Spurs. We had on page 4. Can Reds follow up after CT win? We have that on page 5. Bees eye positive result against the Blues. We have that on page 4. And again, Rivers Plateau draw North African foes. We have it on page 7. All on the Punch Extra Nigeria. Well, this is where we conclude the African newspaper review.
Thank you so much, Metoko at ADOGLO, for giving us the update on the stories trending on various African news.
My pleasure.
All right, now, dear viewers, this is where we conclude today's news edition, coming to you live and direct from Golfe TV Africa here in the city of Cotonou. Now, to end this news, here are the recaps. The skin depigmentation is becoming widespread in Cameroon, where in almost all the country's cities as well as countrysides, people are victims.
In Abidjan, Monday, former President Laurent Gbagbo celebrated the first anniversary of his political group, African People's Party.
We also saw that the impact of a strong US dollar is felt in Nairobi. In Michael Gash's per patrol, business is slow lately.
Well, and so we conclude this edition of the 1 p.m. English News on Golfe TV Africa. I'm Michael ADOGLO, and I'm with
Hazel OGOIGBE.
So thank you for this co-hosting.
Thank you so much, Mr. ADOGLO.
So have yourself a lovely day.